Okay, so distinguished speakers, esteemed colleagues, and respected participants, good afternoon, Assalamu alaikum, namaste, and a very warm welcome to this timely and important webinar on Iran-Israel war, implication for South Asia and its neighborhood. I'm Professor Tawfiq. I'm the director of South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance. I will be moderating this event. Before we go to our panel, I will just let you know the modalities that how we will proceed. I'm so happy to let you know that we have a very exceptional panel of experts today joining us from different parts of Asia and specifically from South Asia also. So we have a Professor Dr. Jainab Gashami Tari from University of Tehran with us. We have with us Professor Amjad Abbas Khan from University of Punjab, Pakistan. Then also Professor Qian Peng, Senior Research Fellow, National Strategy Institute, Tsinghua University, China. We have with us our Professor Muhammad Nuruzzaman from Department of Political Science and Sociology of North-South University. And also Professor Mahendra Lama from Jawaharlal Nehru University of India. The Vice Chancellor of North-South University, Professor Abdul Hannan Chowdhury, he will be the session chair. He will join us after some time, or hopefully by 3:30 p.m. Bangladesh time. So we will have a first round of discussion by our panelists, and then we will have question answer session. I will, as a moderator, also ask some questions specifically to the panelists in the round one. But also in round two, when we will open the floor, we will get questions from our participants who are joining online. And I would request you to give your comments and question in chat box because we will not open for live question answer kind of a thing. And then I will come back to the panelists in the second round of the discussion when they will get a chance to respond to those questions. Before go to the panel, just to give a brief idea that why we are organizing this webinar. The South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance as a regional institute has been working since 2007 and 8. And we are getting engaged with many of the regional issues and also issues related to South Asia and beyond. So you all know that in recent weeks, the world has witnessed an unprecedented escalation in direct hostilities between Iran and Israel. And this 12-day conflict marked a significant turning point in Middle Eastern geopolitics, shifting the nature of confrontation from proxy engagements to overt military exchange. While a ceasefire has since been declared, the situation remains fragile and the broader geopolitical consequences are unfolding across multiple regions. This webinar seeks to critically examine the far-reaching implications of this conflict, not only within the immediate Middle Eastern context, but also concerning South Asia and its extended neighborhood. As countries in this region maintain deep economic, diplomatic, and strategic ties with the Middle East, developments such as these carry profound significance. Issues related to energy security, remittance flows, diaspora welfare, regional alignments, and foreign policy recalibrations are now central to the strategic discourse in South Asia. We are honored to have with us an exceptional, as I said, and panel of experts representing diverse perspectives from Iran, Pakistan, India, China, and Bangladesh. Their insights will help us to better understand the complexities of this evolving situation and its implication for regional stability, global diplomacy, and strategic forecasting. So, as I said, that South Asian Institute is regularly organizing this kind of the webinars and seminars, and we produce policy briefs and working papers, research papers on the basis of this kind of discussion and also our relevant research works. So now we are going to our first presenter, Dr. Jainab Gashami Tari. Dr. Jainab is an associate professor at the Faculty of World Studies, University of Tehran. She specializes in power, identity, and representation with a focus on post-colonial studies, Orientalism, and Iran-Israel relationship. Iran-US relationships. Her current research examines how perceived threats and entrenched beliefs shape public opinion and political decisions. I requested Dr. Joinab to give a initial presentation to make it understand to all of us that what actually happened. He will give us a PowerPoint presentation and we'll listen from him within 15 minutes. But also I requested Dr. Joinab to answer following 3 questions during her presentation. The first question is, how does Iran view the strategic outcomes of this 12-day conflict with Israel, and what message was it aiming to send regionally and globally? The second question is, what are the key challenges Iran faces moving forward, militarily, diplomatically, and economically, especially under increased pressure from Israel and its allies? The third question is, inside of this recent war, how do you see the future of Iran's nuclear program? And do you anticipate further military confrontation with Israel or its allies shortly? So I request Dr. Zainab to start our presentation. So over to you, Dr. Zainab.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very happy and honored to be among my dear colleagues across the region and beyond, and it's an honor to be here. So as you said, I'm going to present the Iranian perspective on what happened during the June conflict and the 12-day war between Iran and Israel. And then I would be very happy to listen to other presenters and how it will have a consequence on region and beyond. So as you all know, I will start with the next slide, which is concerned about, here I'm trying to actually say that how Iranians viewed the attack on Iran. Well, Iran was engaging in talks with E3 and indirectly with the United States over its nuclear program, which, as you all know, it was the JCPOA, which was signed during the Obama administration in 2015 between Iran, EU, European countries, and United States, which Trump decided to pull out unilaterally in his first administration. So this was the pretext of the negotiations between Iran and indirectly with the US and E3. Iran and the US were supposed to hold an indirect negotiation on June 15, and the unprovoked attack, took place on June 13 under the guise of preemptive self-defense, despite there was no evidence that Iranian nuclear threat was imminent. The strike actually, for many Iranians and for many politicians and the public, was regarded as a Western duplicity, that you are negotiating while allowing U.S. aggression. Iranians have information, and the Americans did never denied that they knew about the attack. And so the attack took place with the green light of the Americans and with the knowledge of the Europeans. So on the next slide, I'm going to explain that, well, what happened was that this was, the June attack was in the dark of the night. It was largest scale strikes on Iranian soil, targeting houses of the Iranian scientists. At least 10 scientists, nuclear scientists, were killed, along with their families. They were sleeping at their houses. Top commanders, at least 12 top commanders, were assassinated that night, again with their families. As far as we know so far, over 1,100 people have been killed. About 700 of them were civilians, including women and children. The aggression was sovereign, it was breach of UN Charter, and on the sovereignty of Iranian soil was violated. And as you can see, the photo that I have it here is of one of the nuclear scientists, which was killed with all those red hearts that you can see there. They are all killed in the attack on the house of one of these nuclear scientists. So on the next slide, you can see the image of the attack on Iran's IRIB, which is Iranian National Radio and Television Broadcasting Studio. As you can see, it was attacked in 16 of the June, and 3 people were killed in that attack, and several other reporters were injured. On the next slide, you can see Israel's attack on Evin prison, which took place at the middle of the war. as you can see, I mean, Israel, it's very interesting how they framed the attack, that Israel bombed an Iranian prison symbolically. This was the word they used, and it killed at least 71 people, including prisoners, their families who had come there to visit their family members, and also those who were working in the prison. It was described by the Israeli foreign minister as both retaliation for Iranian missile strikes on Iran on civilian structures, and also somehow an act of liberation, which is very interesting to see how you can possibly attack a prison as an act of liberation and killing the prisoners. On the next slide, you see the other major attack on Iranian nuclear sites, which was both with both the United States and also, I mean, Israel and the United States as well. It was monitored. All these, at least these are the sites that were monitored by International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, and it's considered a serious violation of international law and the UN Charter. On the next slide, I'm explaining what would be Iran's, Iran has suspended all its cooperation with IAEA because, I mean, for a number of reasons. As you all know, on June 12th, a day before the attack, IAEA resolution declared Iran as non-compliance with nuclear obligations, and Iranians believe that this provided the context or the pretext for the attack or the excuse for the attack, while after the attack, Grossi himself said that it doesn't mean, I mean, that report or resolution doesn't mean that Iran was developing any nuclear weapon, but that is what they actually did. The timing was, provided the excuse. And then after the attack, IAEA kept silence. I mean, they never condemned the attack, the US or Israeli attacks. No condemnation was followed, and the Director General Rafael Grossi requested access to bomb sites for safeguards, which Iran rejected as malign. So Iran is not going to let them in. Iran suspended all cooperations, expelling the inspectors, stating that IAEA enabled espionage, and they have evidence that IAEA was giving sensitive information to the Israelis and the Americans about the nuclear sites and also the name of these nuclear scientists. So on the next slide, you can see the hypocrisy of the nuclear hypocrisy, which is, as you can see, Iran is member of NPT since 1917, while Israel is no signatory of NPT. Iran was subject to IAEA most intrusive inspections, that is zero inspections for Israel. There was no evidence of weaponization. There were several reports coming from IAEA that Iran was not moving toward weaponization so far. But Israel, we know that they have there are estimations of 80 to 400 nuclear warheads. So this is what, now Iranians, they can't, this is like a sort of public conversation in Iran that, they constantly make comparison between Iran and Israel over its nuclear program and how Iran was, what was the policy of IAEA toward Iran vis-a-vis Israel. On the next slide, you can see, here are the declared goals of the Israel at the beginning of the war. First one was to eliminate Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities. The second one was regime change through inciting domestic unrest. Tel Aviv thought that the Islamic Republic would collapse with some strikes, operations, assassinations, and car bombs. And then the idea was that the Iranians would come to the street and you can have a regime change. And less explicitly stated by Netanyahu, but Defense Minister of Israel Katz declared the goal of assassinating Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who is the Iranian supreme leader, to trigger the regime collapse. So on the next slide, you can see the assessment of the declared and achieved aims. While Netanyahu framed the war as a historic victory, the outcome is the nuclear program. It might be delayed, but it's not disrupted. There are intelligence coming. U.S. intelligence community as well as IAEA believe that the Iranian nuclear sites have been it has been damaged, but it's working. So strikes might set back enrichment capabilities, but for a few, IAEA has assessed that it has delayed the progression at a few months. regime is unchanged. The so-called regime, what they like to call Iran regime, is unchanged. No uprising was materialized inside Iran, and the ballistic missile capabilities has persisted. Iran retained its missile launch capacity, as shown by retaliatory strikes in Israel. So on the next slide, you can see what is Iran's concerns. I'm trying to respond to the questions you raised. What is Iranian major, or critical security threats that they need to address? Is that the first is that we expect more. Iran is on high alert because we know that Israel has the history of violating ceasefire, and it's very easy for them to do so with the support of the United States and the West. So Iranians know that there might be possible attacks on Iran in future. The first thing that Iranians are working on is to restoring and enhancing defense capabilities to repair damaged those air defense capabilities that were damaged. They are repairing it, and Iran is seeking to upgrade its air defense capabilities to deter future attacks. The second one is countering espionage and internal penetration, which was like one of the major areas of concern, and it was one of the big points that took Iranians by surprise. So Iran faces a severe threat from infiltration of foreign intelligence operatives, particularly Israeli agents and internal collaborators, which demands a major sustained effort to identify, neutralize, and prevent the penetration. And the third one is acquiring advanced intelligence and military technologies. Iran recognizes that its primary strategic adversary is not Israel alone, but a powerful coalition of Western nations, especially the US, UK, Germany, and France. So I think I would like to refer to what German Chancellor said, that the Israelis are doing the dirty jobs of the West for us. So that is how Iranians view it, that they have to not, if it was just Israel, it could easily could Iran defeat them, but we are facing a coalition of these rogue states. So to counter this technologically superior alliance, Iran is seeking access to new intelligence, gathering systems, cyber capabilities, and electronic warfare tools. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk about the global and regional consequences very briefly. I will touch upon them. I think our other colleagues are going to give us more details about the consequences on West Asia, Middle East Asia as well. So the erosion of Western credibility, the first thing that happens, and I think this was very important, especially among younger generation of Iranians who were, they were thinking that, okay, the West is, we need to be like the West, and the West is like civilized, and if we have negotiations, we can resolve the issue. This was the erosion of Western credibility inside Iran, and I think also the image of the West. So the US and European powers have fundamentally undermined their credibility guardians of international norms. Their selective application of rules has exposed the rule-based international order as functional meaningless. This hypocrisy eliminates any more moral high ground on human rights and sovereignty issues. The second one is the strategic disruption of global energy security, that during the recent conflict, Iran's action disrupted critical oil shipping lanes, contributing to 10% surge in global oil price. This actually, if the situation continued, there would be some estimation that, Iran can also close the Strait of Hormuz, which would move the world to halt nearly 30% of global traded oil overnight, and eliminate the spare production capacity, especially in the Persian Gulf states, trigger catastrophic market instability, threatening economic security worldwide. On the next slide, you can see the nuclear non-proliferation is at risk. Iran's threat to withdraw from nuclear non-proliferation treaty. This would undermine global non-proliferation regimes, and it will complicate IAEA monitoring of Iranian nuclear activities. It will also accelerate some armories in the region and beyond. So I think you have seen this from Turkey, that said that announced that it planned to boost domestic defense production to achieve full independence, citing Israel's strikes as a sinister message. So actually, Turkey, we know, is a close. Turkey is a NATO member, and it's an important trading partner of Israel. Then we have also the Persian Gulf states that have accelerated their defense collaborations. On the next slide, I think overall, Iran has emerged as more resilience, and this is the public-wise. So the Iranian public has developed a profound skepticism toward the West. Iran's resilience during the Western conflict has not only countered Israel's efforts to degrade its military and nuclear infrastructure, but also amplified its regional influence in a sense. And also, Israel's strikes appear to have galvanized Iranian public sentiment. That is interesting, and I think it's like a bit sad, or maybe, this is not something we are happy about, but there is a growing segment of Iranian society now actively support or even demand the pursuit of nuclear weapons as a strategic deterrent, making a significant shift in domestic discourse. So that was my presentation. Thank you for listening and for giving me time to present.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zainab, for the introductory presentation, and also in a very comprehensive manner portraying the situation of the war, and also in a stock taking of inside situation of Iran, and also some of the slides you mentioned about the global implications. We are getting dozens of questions from already from the Zoom, and also we are already also in Facebook Live. So a few hundreds are also watching through Facebook. So we are getting questions from there. I'm sure I will get back to you once we complete the first round by getting speeches from the other panelists. So I will now go to Dr. Amjad Abbas Khan. Dr. Amjad Abbas Khan Maksi is a professor at the Pakistan Study Center, University of Punjab, and currently serves as its director. He is also the president of the Academic Staff Association at Punjab University and a visiting faculty member at several Chinese universities. With a PhD in Pakistan studies, his academic focus includes politics, governance, and Pakistan's external relations. Dr. Maksi has over 25 years of teaching experience and numerous publications, both in journals and books. I have two questions to you, Professor Amjad. The first question is, how is the Iran-Israel conflict shaping Pakistan's foreign policy, especially its balancing role in the Middle East and global alignments? The second question is, what potential security, economic, and sectarian spillovers could this conflict create for Pakistan and its neighborhood? So, Professor Amjad, you will get 10 minutes in this round.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be among the very august panelists and about this very important issue which is being discussed. And as the issue has been raised, that has very significant importance for Pakistan and also for the region as well. Because of this, Iranian and Israeli conflict has almost a direct effects in Pakistan foreign policy, economy, society, and diaspora as well. As has been mentioned, that because Pakistan has never recognized Israel, and Pakistan has a very strong stance about Israel's presence and also its role in the international politics, and especially about these atrocities going on in Gaza. So when Israel attacked Iran...
Professor Amjad, sorry to interrupt. Can you, on your video, we cannot see you. We can only hear you. Can you just switch on your video?
Okay.
No, I can see him. I can see him.
Is it okay? So is it okay?
I can see him fine. His video is working.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So as I was mentioning, that because of this attack from Israel on Iran, because Pakistan and Iran shares 900 kilometers of borders on the southwest, so attack from Israel on Iran was very alarming for Pakistan as well. because in 1 month before, in May, when Pakistan and India had this encounter, and Israel and Indian, their cooperation was very open. So in that context also, and also in the general context in which Pakistan never recognized Israel. So it was very much a matter of very real concern for Pakistan as well on this context, on this strategic context. And the other one was, as you know, the Pakistan is a large importer of the oil, and if there was any extended war and the war expanded, that would have been very severe impact on Pakistan's economy, as the very major share that comes from Gulf and Arab countries. And third one was if the war would have been have a spillover. So the migration, there was a lot of chance because of Pakistan's proximity to Iran. That was a lot, there was an apprehension that there would be a lot of migration from Iranian people to Pakistani soil. So, and Pakistan had already, was not about 2,400 million people already here in Pakistan. So it was going to be a big challenge for Pakistan. So in these all contexts, so at that moment, Pakistan came out, and it was Pakistan was the first country, Pakistan's foreign minister, who called on the Iranian foreign minister and expressed not only the solidarity but condemned the Israeli attack, not only bilaterally but in the UN and on every forum, whether it was in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, IAEA, on every available forum, Pakistani government very openly and candidly not only supported Iranian right of self-defense, but also condemned Israeli attack. So that was the point then when Pakistan, because as I have said that if Israeli government, as they were claiming that they are here to for the regime change as well. So if there would have been a regime change, that would have also been a very destabilizing effect in the region. So Pakistan could not have effect, could not afford that as well. So Pakistan came out, Pakistan not only negotiated with other countries, like Pakistan called for the Organization of Islamic Countries Foreign Ministers meeting, where there it was held in Turkey. So that on all available forums, Pakistan came forward and took a very forward approach to neutralize this kind of, and also went for the ceasefire between the two countries, and it wanted that it should not expanded and extended to more. And it was Pakistan who also used this diplomatic channels as well, behind the scene, in front of the scene, track to diplomacy as well, so that this fight and this battle and this war could not be extended. And ultimately, when it was finished, and it was, as you have, everybody has seen that Pakistani Army Chief Field Marshal Qasim Munir was in America, and also they also engaged with Turkey and these kind of countries, and also with the Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and these channels Pakistan also exploited that could be used to localize the war and minimize and to stop Israel from further aggression. So that's why, because as I have already said, that Pakistan could not afford this, and also Pakistan has trying to have a good relations with Iran on this side as well. So they are developing the relations, and they are also in a state of affairs where they want to have a very strong relation with Iran as well. So this opportunity came, and Pakistan also came forward, and Pakistan played its role. And we in Pakistani, not in our parliament, our local public, and all in sundry, all for walks of life, they stood for the support of Iran, and they condemned Israel openly. All the society, government, and all the segments, they went on diplomatic and strategic levels. They were used all their channels so that we can not only support Iran, but also we can stop Israel, to stop it. And not, if Israel could have succeeded in, it would have destabilized the whole region as well. And it would have been very far-reaching impact, because Pakistan have also having in this area, which connects with Iran, the CPEC, the Gwadar port. So where Pakistan have very strategic interest there. So we could not have this kind of let Israel, that the Israel could have this kind of, you can say, intervention in Iran. So that's why we, as in the past, we have very good relation with Iran. In the past wars, Iran, when Pakistan and India came forward in came for a fight in May, Iran came out very openly. Iranian foreign minister visited Pakistan and visited New Delhi as well, and they tried to play their role to de-escalate and also that war is stopped. So that's why, and in the earlier wars, in 1965 war with India, 1971 war with India, so Iran and Pakistan relations have proved very test of the times. So this was the time when Pakistan came forward and Pakistan played its role on all the channels internationally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Amjad. We will come back to you already. There are some questions coming in the chat box and in Facebook regarding Pakistan's role also in this conflict. Now we go to our third panelist, Professor Chian Feng. Professor Chian Feng is the director of the research department at the National Security Institute, Tsinghua University, and a senior research fellow at the Tahi Institute. He also holds several prestigious positions, including executive member of the China South Asia Society and special commentator for CGTN, Global Times, and Phoenix TV. His main research areas include Chinese diplomacy and neighborhood security, with a strong focus on South Asia. So I have two questions for Professor Chian Feng. The first question is, with China reportedly supplying air defense systems to Iran, how does Beijing balance in its Middle East interest amid Iran-Israel tensions? And what does this mean for its ties with Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the US? And this is definitely relevant now very much because in the social media we are seeing so many discussion about Chinese role, especially after India-Pakistan small conflict few months ago, and also now the Iran-Israel conflict, that whether the Chinese arms industry are getting more prominence after this conflict. The second question is, how might Middle East instability affect China's energy security and its regional diplomacy in South Asia, especially through the Belt and Road Framework? Over to you, Dr. Feng.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Yes. Thank you, Professor Topic, for your invitation. Yes, and yes, and also I'm very happy to meet old friend and also know new friend. The old friend, the Professor Maxi, a long time. I'm so glad you're very well. Yes, and this Salam alaikum. Good afternoon. Yes, and also thanks, Madam Tari's introduction about the Iranian perspective on the 12 days conflict. Yeah. Yes, and yes, since recently, yes, some news reports that the China air defense systems to Iran. To my knowledge, yes, reports about the China's providing the military assistance to Iran inaccurate. Yes, even so, I think it's the cooperation remains in its initial phase. But however, China, I think, are willing to share China's military, scientific, and technological achievements with the countries on the premise of maintaining a regional peace. We have done many years, and yes, in military cooperations with Bangladesh. I think the core of the China's Middle East strategy, is economic and mutual benefits, plus political balance, and plus multilateral leadership. And by deepening economic cooperations with Iran and Saudi Arabia and Israel to form a shared, leveraging the political mediation to promote regional reconciliation and unilateral platforms to counter the U.S. pressure. China strives to build an relatively peaceful regional order. This policy not only safeguards China's energy security and ocean interests, but also enhances China's global and regional influence, ensuring the sustainability of China's strategic layout. Yes, specifically, yes, China's political and diplomatic interest in the Middle East, shortly and laminate the multilateral diplomacy, focused on establishing the strategical footholds in polar order. In recent years, China has engaged with Middle Eastern countries through the Global Security Initiative, the GSI, achieving notable results. Particularly the 2023 reconciliation the intermediation between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Those efforts remain highly successful. Recently, the Saudi Arabia's with Saudi Arabia's MBS also met with Iran foreign minister. So, notably, China being a key supporter of the two-state solutions. On the fundamental issues, remains steadfast in upholding the justice and the principles. Regarding the China interest in the Middle East, I think we can be summarized as energy plus industrial chain restructuring. The Middle East strategic importance in China's economic strategy has taken characteristics due to the global energy transformation. First, while the trade depends and decrease, its strategic value remains unchanged. Examples: Saudi Arabia will remain China's third largest suppliers in the 2024. Meanwhile, 30% of the natural gas imported from the UAE is used to ensure our energy security. And second, new energy corporations has been explosive growth. China Middle East energy investment reached $39 billion last year's last year's data. The third, industrial chains integrations is evident, such as the new energy vehicles and the digital economy. For instance, we company signed a network operations agreement with the UAE, covering the Dubai City project. As for China's security interest in the Middle East, briefly, yes, they are anti-terrorism corporations and the Langi. The China security interest in the Middle East focused on the three areas: terrorism corporations, defense corporations, and the maritime passage security. So, therefore, under the current situations, especially the conflicts and the tensions between Israel and Iran, the essence of China's policy is development-oriented geopolitics, and its interests are balanced four pillars. The first, I think, is economical ties. It's a BRI framework. China will upgrade the traditional energy to a full industrial chain corporations, fostering the regional countries' economic interdependence. And second, China will provide security to the best of our abilities, including the counterterrorism operations, defense, and the peacekeeping operations, thereby building inclusive. And then the third, through the platforms like the United Nations, the Shanghai Corporations Organizations, SCO, China will promote rulemaking to transform the GSI into a regional. The fourth, China will strengthen the civilizational dialogue with Islamic and Arab countries. In my opinion, China avoids getting involved in great power competition while enhance influence through the substantive corporations. According to the, China has become the only major power, yes, in the Middle East that made a strategical dialogue relations with Iran, Arab countries, and also Israel at the same time, yes. Yes, dear Chair, for your second questions, I think the Middle East instabilities definitely affect the China and also our regional diplomacy. And also, it will influence our policies, our interests in South Asia, and also some implications, yes, on our BRI, yes. I think, yes, yes, the ongoing the problems and the conflict pose the complex challenges to the China's energy, yes, but at the same time, it also creates the new opportunities for China. In instance, in the energy sectors, the current security risks, yes, are very high. The oil supplies, yes, yes, very, yes. I think the risk is very high because Iran also remains the China's one of the largest oil suppliers, accounting for the 12% of imports. The Strait of the Hormuz be blocked. These critical oil imports will be threatened. However, China can mitigate the potential risk by the strategic policies. This includes expanding the cooperations with South Arabia Sea region to reduce the dependence on the single energy channels, and also the land-based oil gas pipelines partnership with Russia and also Central Asia countries, and also China's
Professor,
Central Asia.
Professor, we are running a little bit tight with the time, so you can finish.
My only yes, yes, 50 seconds. 50 seconds.
Please.
That is, I think, for the China's diplomacy in Asia. I think the biggest opportunity is the current chaos across Asian countries to unite, seek win-win cooperations with China, and build mechanisms. But unfortunately, it's maybe not including the Indians, but now in the process, yes, of from better to better. Yes, thank you. That's the end of my in my presentations.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Chen. We will come back to you again in the second round. We have several questions already in the chat box for you. Now we go to our fourth panelist, Dr. Mohammad Nuruzzaman. Professor Nuruzzaman is a political scientist at North-South University. With over 20 years of academic experience, he has taught at universities in Canada, Bangladesh, and Kuwait, including serving as the founding director of the Center for Global Studies at GUST. His research focuses on international relations theory, global political economy, human rights, political Islam, and the politics of the Middle East and South Asia. He has published extensively in leading international journals and received notable fellowships in different institutions. I have two questions to Professor Nuruzzaman. The first one is how might the Iran-Israel conflict affect Bangladesh's foreign policy, particularly its position on Middle Eastern affairs and non-aligned diplomacy? The second one is what risk does the conflict pose for Bangladesh's energy security, remittance flows, and the well-being of the migrant workers in the Gulf? Over to you, Professor, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Taufik Haq. I am really glad to join this discussion. And distinguished panelists and our friends from Pakistan, Iran, India, and China. My job will be only to project the position of Bangladesh on this particular, especially significant development taking place in the Middle East. Let me start with this basic statement that any outbreak of violence, any war in the Middle East usually creates a diplomatic tightrope for Bangladesh. And if there is an attack on by Israel on Palestine, on Iran, also by the US, then the diplomatic tightrope develops more and more complexities, and it creates very difficulties for Bangladesh to come up with balancing responses. So before I elaborate, let me actually highlight the ideological versus pragmatism fault lines in Bangladesh foreign policy. So ideologically, Bangladesh as a Muslim country is actually tied to the Arab Muslim countries and non-Arab Muslim countries in the Middle East and in other parts of the world. And common brotherhood, economic interest, political, diplomatic ties usually define our relationship with those countries. At the same time, there is also a pragmatic dimension that economically we have actually more interest in the Western countries, particularly in the European Union and in the United States. So the tensions between these ideological versus pragmatic fault lines creates some sort of diplomatic ambiguity, strategic ambiguity on the part of Bangladesh. That means our country is hardly able to take a clear position on any party with bias for party or going against another party. So, and this has been particularly clear in the foreign policy statements of the country issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs occasionally. So with this brief statement, let me also highlight the fact that of the two warring parties in this latest round of military flare-up, Iran is a brotherly Muslim country, having historical, political, cultural ties with the people of this country. Israel, on the other hand, is diplomatically not recognized by Bangladesh. Even Bangladeshi citizens are facing ban to visit Israel. At the same time, we don't have official business, economic, and trade linkages to Israel either. So that means our position on this particular conflict has been actually shaped and defined by not by Israel but by the US position and the position of the European Union. And let me also mention that even before the outbreak of this particular war between Israel and Iran, there was already the 2020 Abraham Accords. Some Arab countries already normalized relations with Israel. Saudi Arabia was about to open its diplomatic relations with Israel. So Bangladeshi position was already actually facing a tough diplomatic test. What should be the position of Bangladesh if Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries would really establish diplomatic relations with Israel? So now in this changed context, we see that our position, our official position and public position are actually different. Official position defined by pragmatic interest, access to Western markets, investments, economic, technological cooperation. But at the public level, it is actually extremely favorable sentiments, emotions to the Arab countries, to Iran, and to the Palestinians particularly. So the first, I will actually elaborate here a set of domestic as well as external factors shaping Bangladesh's responses to Middle Eastern developments, including the latest round of conflict war between the between the Islamic Republic of Iran and Israel. So the first one is the strong public sentiments for Muslim causes in Bangladesh. Bangladeshi public highly, overwhelmingly in favor of Palestinian cause, in favor of Muslim cause. And this is particularly also promoted by some Islamic political parties and Islamic groups. They keep pressuring the government to take a clear position, that is denounce Israel, denounce American attack, American position, etc. And we have also secular political parties, but they also remain silent, mostly silent, mainly because they don't like to get the public backlash. So that means a neutral position also actually in favor of the Muslim position of Bangladesh foreign policy. Now, officially, in fact, I already told you that the policy stance is actually different, very different from the public sentiment. Now, with regard to the external factors, there is a high danger of alienating Western powers, particularly the United States and the European Union states. So the United States, we know that is the second largest markets for Bangladeshi products. And our garments, pharma products usually make oils to the American markets. And if because of a foreign policy stance against Israel, against the US, that means in that case we may lose access to the American markets. And President Trump has already threatened to impose 35% duty tax on products from Bangladesh. In fact, if that is materialized, then it will create too much economic problems for this country, and we can hardly take risk by siding with Iran publicly. So that actually exposes our economic limitations. Now, with regard to the European Union, it is the single largest market for Bangladeshi products. So Bangladesh earns some 45% of its total export earnings from the single European market. Not only that, the European Union has promised to give us GSP benefits when we graduate from our LDC status to the developing country status by next year. So that means that we have also very limited options here. And not only that, I think the Western financial corporations, investors, banking corporations, they would also try to isolate from Bangladesh, mainly because they would be usually under pressures of their governments not to expand economic, trade, investment relations with this country. The second important factor for Bangladesh is Bangladesh's connectivity, connections to the Gulf economies. We all know that the Gulf countries usually are pro-American allies, and the US has extensive economic, trade, military relations with all the Gulf countries, particularly the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and also Qatar, the three leading Gulf countries. And all three countries, except Qatar to some extent, are 100% pro-American. But one noticeable development is that at this time, in the latest round of conflict, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE took a somewhat pro-Iran stance because they all condemned Israeli strikes on Iran, although they did not condemn American strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. That actually exposes their weaknesses, that they cannot really go against the United States. Now, if that is the case, then Bangladesh has to actually take that into serious consideration, because if Bangladesh goes against the Gulf countries, that would also put us in serious troubles because of very few reasons, like our energy security. We import most of our energy and LPG, crude oil from the Gulf countries. And any increase in oil prices would definitely widen our current account deficits. And also, we will force us to pay more amount of dollars to pay for the energy import bills. So, and until the time we have actually energy security granted, or we develop alternative renewable sources of energies, Bangladesh has actually limited option in this regard. And the second important option is factor is that some 8 million Bangladeshi migrant workers are currently in the Gulf countries. They are sending back $20 billion every year. So that's a huge source of remittance for us. Now, in case there is another round of war, an all-out war between Iran and the Israel-US contending blocs, that means the security of these migrant workers would be at stake. And we do not have any contingent plan to evacuate the migrant workers quickly either. So that means we have to develop some kind of network with our regional partners like India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, those countries. India actually did a major evacuation of 3,100 Indian nationals living in Israel and Iran. I think by the 17th or 18th of June. That was a good experience. I think Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal can further build on this Indian experience, how to evacuate the migrant workers so quickly. Now, in addition to that, we have also very good trade relations with other countries in the Middle East. That would be also at stake. In brief, a diplomatic misstep can seriously jeopardize Bangladesh's interest, economic, political, and strategic interest. And I have highlighted the limitations, weaknesses of our foreign policy. But one thing I should mention is that the role of the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, in this particular event, it usually takes a middle position on almost all important developments in the Middle East. And Bangladesh usually aligns with the OIC because it gives it the diplomatic and political shelter. It supports the OIC statements because it is neither against Iran completely nor against Israel and the US explicitly. So Bangladesh finds actually quite acceptable that a particular position because it is in line with our strategic ambiguity, in line with our own interest. Hopefully that I would be ready to answer more questions whenever the viewers come up with, and thank you very much for the time being.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Nur Zaman. Already we're also having few questions towards you, and we'll come back to those later on. So we have the last panelist in this round, Dr. Mahendra P. Lama. Professor Lama is a professor at the Center for South Asian Studies, School of International Studies of Jawaharlal Nehru University, an expert in regional cooperation, energy, trade security, and border studies. He was the founding vice chancellor of Sikkim University and served as chief economic advisor to the government of Sikkim in 2000 to 2007 with cabinet rank. He is a former member of National Security Advisory Board and currently serves on the Eminent Persons Group of Nepal-India Relations. Dr. Lama has represented India in major SAARC and ASEAN forums and held visiting positions at universities in Japan, the US, and South Asia. And he has published a lot in the different kind of journals and also books and book chapters. I have two questions to you, Professor Lama. The first question is, given India's strong defense ties with Israel, how is the New Delhi balancing its strategic partnership with Israel while maintaining crucial relations with Iran and Gulf states? The second question is, how could the Iran-Israel conflict impact India's energy security, regional diplomacy, and its broader role in the shifting global order? And especially in relation, you know, that just we have seen that the finishing of the BRICS summit, and India is an active member of BRICS, so how India is seeing itself in this multipolar world order that's going to be emerged. So for Professor Lama, you need to unmute yourself. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Taufik, and yeah, giving me this opportunity. I'm very pleased to share the dais with all the panelists from different countries. You know, it's a very complex situation for a country like India. You have Iran, which has a very close civilizational linkage, millennia long history. You have Palestine, for which India has fought for almost 50 years consistently in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? And you have Israel, which was given a kind of a diplomatic status in 1992, but expansively developed relations, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years. And on top of this, you have another complex situations. You have China, you have Russia, and you have US interconnected to these countries, Israel, Iran, in a very complex manner. You have the global regional forums like BRICS, right, which keeps out US, right, and that makes situation very complicated. So it's a game which India is trying to cope up with. Hard power versus soft power, dependence versus interdependence, technology versus economic resources, north versus south, a divided south, a very disoriented north, right? And more importantly, the literal collapse of the global institutions, not able to do anything when Israel does something severely wrong in Gaza and other areas. So the question is, how does India react to this kind of situation? For us in India, I think it is very, very crucial that our relations with Iran is a very, very comprehensive relationship. Cultural, right? Resources related to oil, though our dependence on oil from Iran has gone down drastically in the last 20 years. 11% of our oil used to come from Iran about 2006-07, then 9%, then today it is not even 1%, right? It's precise, and because there is a third force, which is US, right? And it has sanctions, and this sanction has got direct relations with India's anything to do with Iran. Then you have the Chabar port, so very crucial, launched with so much of fanfare, with so much of hopes and aspirations by India and Iran, right? And of course, Afghanistan also. Then you have a very high level interactions, interrelations between Iran and India, including what you call the bilateral consultative mechanisms, including that of the national security advisors. On the other hand, you have Israel. And one would be really impressed by the comprehensiveness and the steady development of relations between India and Israel in the last, 15 to 20 years. You have a strategic partnership relations, right? You have a very comprehensive defense agreements, technology and innovations exchange services, including in water, to agriculture, to pharmaceuticals, to climate change, right? And more than that, you have very hardcore defense exchanges, including the long-range missiles, including that of the what you call the UAVs and the Barak 8 missiles. Now, given this kind of interconnections between Iran and India, between Iran and Israel, between Israel and India, and given the third forces, the role of third forces, including China, US, and Russia, and it's India's very intriguing relations with China, to a large extent with with Russia, and unpredictability of a platform of unpredictability created by US makes India absolutely very, very, what you call it, mm, uh, uh, very, very kind of a very, very a player in a very fragile platform. Anything can happen. Interconnectedness, the relations are so complex today. There is nothing like a North Forum or a South Forum. G20 is doing nothing. G7 has become so polarized within G77. So what does India do? I think India's most critical interest is, of course, the economic interest. Second interest is, of course, is related to its national security interest, both within the region and outside the region. And third critical interest is Indian diaspora that is widely spread over the Gulf countries. And if you see Gulf countries, we still have $184 billion of trade. We have almost $20 billion coming from Gulf countries. So it is a huge stake as far as India is concerned. You have a trade deficit with China, a huge trade deficit to the extent of $92 billion, and you have a trade surplus with US, right? And not a very significant trade deficit with Russia also. Therefore, I think India has found it very delicate to negotiate, right, with the countries, because the defense system wise, India is largely integrated with US, Russia, and to a certain extent with Israel, right? And so it would have been much easier if it was Israel minus US. If it was Iran minus US, it would have been much easier for India to deal with. But today, every time India would like to do something, you have on the back of our mind, what would US do, right? You have on the back of mind, to a certain extent, how would China react, right? And therefore, the three very critical impacts of this in South Asia, I would say, is South Asia is going to be further fragmented. So that means all our efforts in the past 30, 40 years of regionalism, sub-regionalism, South Asia as a bloc is going to be a very, very formidably challenging agenda for South Asian countries. The second very critical issue is India and the neighborhood, particularly with Pakistan, is going to be much more complex, given what has happened in the last 2 months, right? The India's stand on water resources, India's stand on terrorism, and the global mobilizations of the global world on terrorism, right? And Pakistan's stand on how, in what way it can really deal with the South Asian issues. I think these are going to be very, very complex. The last thing I would like to mention here is, of course, there is very very limited scope for a country like India, and for that matter, any of the South Asian countries, to go to a multilateral forum, go to any forum that we looked forward to, including UN and GATT and all these countries. There is no forum as far as North-South dialogue is concerned. The South-South division is so intense today that even if India would like to mobilize the way it mobilized through G77, non-aligned movement, and UNCTAD in 50s, 60s, and 70s, I don't think that is a possibility. So it's a very, very complex. I think the global world and South Asia region has never seen this phenomenon, which is so fragile, which is so complicated, and at the same time, which has so deep interconnections and what crisscrossing that it can lead to short circuit anytime, right? So everybody, a country like India is very, very cautious at this stage to deal with US, to really substantially comment upon Iran and Israel, do something substantive as far as even humanitarian assistance is concerned in Gaza, and of course dealing with very complicated partners like China and Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lama, for articulating the very important questions and also the answers of this one. And I'm sure that there are already a few questions came towards you. We'll go back to those later on. In this round, we'll go in a different manner. We'll come back to Professor Jainab at last, because so many questions are there about this conflict and other things. So we'll listen from our other panelists at first, and then at last we'll go to Professor Jainab from University of Tehran. Let me start with the questions coming for Professor Amjad Abbas Khan. There are a few questions are there. I'm not going to take all those because of the shortage of time. So the first question probably is interesting one. One of our viewers asked this question is, if Pakistan is against Israel, why does Pakistan openly support its backer, and especially nominating Trump for Nobel Peace Prize when Field Marshal Asif Munir visited? You mentioned about his visit to White House, and he said that he nominated for him. So how does it mix and match with the Pakistan's consistent foreign policy towards a kind of anti-Israel kind of a thing? So that's the one question. The other question probably I will also be asking that even this is also for the Professor Lama maybe. How might the Iran-Israel conflict reshape South Asian countries' diplomatic relation with the Middle East, particularly for nations like India and Pakistan that have ties with Iran in one side and Israel in the other side? Maybe at this stage, these two questions, Professor Amjad. Oh, the third question, sorry, the third question is, it also came from that Israel, one of the ministers already said that if they can really ensure dismantling the nuclear possibility of Iran, then the next target should be Pakistan for them. So they say it publicly now. There were lots of discussion about it, but now they say it publicly. So these three questions, and we don't have much time, Professor. So if you can finish this within 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Coming to the first question, when Pakistan made this diplomatic move while proposing the nomination of President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, it was before the first thing is that it was before the US attack on Iran. The second thing is that it is in the background of the President Trump's role, which he played during Pakistan and India war, because it was President Trump who came in and he played this role that the war which was going to escalate between Pakistan and India.
Also, sorry to interrupt you. Just probably I might have my ignorance maybe, but did Pakistan also condemn the US after attacking US attack on Iran?
Pakistan very openly said that it's very unfortunate and it should not have happened. And Pakistan also made those diplomatic channels, including involving Turkey and these that. So Pakistan, because as you have mentioned that Israel was openly stating that next target can be Pakistan. So Pakistan was trying all its best that this war between Israel and Iran should not escalate. And as Israel was openly threatening Pakistan as well. So it was Pakistan has a very, this choice that Pakistan stood with Iran openly, and this Nobel Peace Prize that should be taken as in the background of Pakistan-India war, not Pakistan-Israel-Iran war. So because even after that, Pakistan used its diplomatic channels, convinced the other parts of the world as well, and even to America, said they even when American attacked Iranian atomic arsenals, and even when Iran retaliated by attacking the American air bases in Qatar, Pakistan continuously pursuing both US and try to that war should not be escalated. So the first thing is this, that this should be taken as in the background of Pakistan-India context, not in Israel and Iran talk. Because on Israel point of view, Pakistan is very much open, and and also as far as the regional balance is concerned, I think this Pakistan-India war and also Israel-Iran war has also going to shape new regional alignments in South Asia as well, because Iran, India, and the Israeli joint collaboration has been very openly manifested. It is open to Iran now as well. And the other side, Pakistan, Turkey, they have come very closer and even much before the past. And even if we recognize and we remember the past, there used to be RCD in 1960s, which was developed between Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey. So we are looking forward, Pakistan is looking forward to strengthen its ties with Iran and with Turkey as well, not only in the strategic, but also in kind of, economic terms as well, so that Pakistan can get out of its financial crunch as well. So also it is going to strengthen its strategic cooperation with Turkey, and also definitely Iran as a natural, on its borders. So that's why I think that Pakistan and this war has brought more closer to Iran, more closer to Turkey, and this kind of regional cooperation. And also China is definitely is very important player of this region. Russia is very much there because Russia also took that very much open position on this. So in this, during this war, Pakistan, China, and Afghanistan also hold talks in Beijing. So there is also possibility that through this Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, and Pakistani railway line is also built, and Turkey has also shown its interest. So I think this war has brought more opportunities and some shifting of new alliances in this region as well. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Professor Ramzad. If we get time, we will come back to you. So there are a few other questions there. Now we would like to go to Professor Chiang Feng. So there are three questions. One is about, you mentioned that China is always in favor of avoiding great power confrontation. But the question came that is it practically possible in this current situation? China is only focusing economic development and also trying to get distance with the political power confrontation and the plan. But in reality, what we are seeing that the US and the Western border plan against Russia and China, the way it has been played out, how far China is confident that it will be able to keep this policy that not getting engaged with the great power confrontation. So that's the first question. So, Professor Peng, are you there?
Yes, yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, I think, yes, from my point of view, yes, the China definitely, yes, is emerging power, yes. But yes, we know our abilities very well, yes. The also abilities also have limits, because actually on the geopolitical, yes, perspective, even would have a lot of interest, but it's also far from China, yes. And we are a new player, yes, in the Middle East. So the China now is only can do their best, yes, to try their best to play some constructive roles to persist, to make the current situations come down. Yes, but we cannot. We are not the I think not the key player for the solution of so many complicated problems happened in the Middle East. Yeah, that's my thinking is, even China is yeah, and the priority for China's policies, internal policy or the external policy. The first thing that is we strengthen ourselves. Yeah, yes, make our things is our domestic affairs. Yes, yes, handle it. Yes, very well. Yes, and that is the first step. Then after that, we can have a more extra resources, more extras to contribute to the world. Thank you. Hi, Chair. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, yes, I'm okay. Yes, the diplomacy we always called the 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 big power diplomacy is our priority, and also the neighboring diplomacy is our foundations, and also the third level is the things with our diplomacies with the global south. Yeah, that is our policy is also very clear. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I mentioned. Yeah, I mentioned. Yeah, we have limits. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Chang. And now we go to Person Nuruzzaman. There are also questions regarding the one question is what are the potential consequences of prolonged instability in Middle East on South Asia's energy security and trade flows, particularly for oil-dependent countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka? You already covered this in your presentation, but if you want to add anything more. Another question from Bangladesh was came like, let's see. Yeah, could the Iran-Israel war lead to religious tensions or protest in Bangladesh, and what would be the consequence of that kind of things for future?
Okay, thank you. I think the second question is actually more important than the first question. I have briefly touched on the first question already, and it is a common fact that for all South Asian countries, energy dependence is a reality. So Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Pakistan, these four countries are more dependent on the Middle Eastern energy sources than India. India itself has, in the short term, I think, invested in the renewable energy sources. So India is trying to cut its dependence, but on the contrary, the four other countries did not really come up with any effective measures and plans to reduce the dependence on energy supplies from the volatile Middle East region. And for that reason, I believe that India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, also Nepal, should come up with close energy security cooperation. They should build some kind of energy reservoirs, both oil and LPG. So that could actually enable them to face challenges in the future, to absorb the shock waves of further military flare-ups in the Middle East. So other than that, these countries should also explore their own sources of domestic energy, like oil, gas in the Bay of Bengal for India, Pakistan, for India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Nepal is a landlocked. It has actually less and less opportunities to be self-reliant on energy sources. But I know that Nepal is also generating hydro energy to keep its citizens keep consuming energy. That's the one side. Another is actually the religious issue here. I think religion is already a big factor. If there is any conflict in the Middle East, it usually generates a protest throughout the Muslim world. Now, here in this case, there was a possibility, I think, if Iran would collapse under American-Israeli attacks, in that case, Shia-Sunni conflict could become much more serious. Because the Shia people, although they are primarily concentrated in Iran and a few other countries like Bahrain, Iraq, Azerbaijan, but they have actually sizable numbers in different South Asian countries. So the Sunni countries, Sunni Arab countries, they usually side with the United States, although not publicly with Israel. So we already know that. So the fall of the Shia power, the Shia powerhouse could actually ignite possibly more regional sectarian conflicts, in my personal opinion. And the Sunni powers, though they do not really support Israel publicly, but in this case, in this latest round of war, as I understand and you also understand, they also wanted an Iran minus nuclear power. So a conventional Iran is acceptable to all the Gulf countries, other Middle Eastern countries, because in that case, Iranian influence would not be that much felt across the region. But a nuclear Iran, and Iran armed with nuclear teeth, is going to exert more influence. It has already developed its own network of militia groups, the Shia militia groups in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also the Houthis in Yemen. So these groups would be more and more empowered if Iran finally manages to go nuclear. Although we know that currently they are actually significantly degraded. Their military capabilities to attack Israel or just to come up with a strong resistance to Israeli attack, future attack, that might not happen so easily. But the rise of Iran would definitely empower them. But we hope that Iran and Saudi Arabia, the two Muslim powerhouses, they manage their rivalry, they manage their strategic relationships, and not to ignite this sectarian tensions, sectarian violence in the Middle East. It is in the benefits of all nations in the Middle East. They must maintain this peace on religious grounds as well as on regional economic security and political grounds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Person Nur Zaman. I just want to supplement one thing with Person Nur Zaman, that we didn't discuss about the sectarian things here in a very detailed manner, even though he mentioned it some way. Even though we do understand that the Sunni world in the Middle East, especially the rulers who are in power, they are in favor of this that Iran without nuclear power. But that's not quite sure that whether the people of the Sunni world, whether they are living in Indonesia, in Malaysia, or even in many parts of the other Middle Eastern country, what do they want? So do they
want the nuclear Iran?
Yeah, they want. So there's a difference between the rulers and the general people. Even in Bangladesh, probably you look into the social media,
100%.
that the people, they want to see a stronger Iran. The Sunni world also and the Shia world, they want to see that the Iran really capable of is been able to counter Israel in a very in a forceful manner. So I think that's a difference between the position in the rulers of the Gulf rulers and also the people.
If I can add just one sentence, that an Iranian victory against Israel would actually make all the Muslim peoples happy and delighted, and they will go for party the whole night.
Yeah, and that's one question that we didn't ask here, because there were few questions in the chat box and also Facebook. The people are saying that here we are talking about Iran, Israel, but we are not talking about Gaza. And then the Gaza issue comes. Middle East and other Muslim world, probably the only people believe that Iran is the only country who can save Gazans and also the Palestinians, because the other Muslim nations, they didn't do anything for Palestinians. So anyway, this is another kind of a debate and discussion. We will take a question from our another professor, Professor Mahbub, and then we go to our last panelist, last two panelists, Professor Lama from JNU and also Professor Janab from University of Tehran.
I had a question to Dr. Amjad. In the news, we saw that Pakistan was willing to nominate.
Yeah, that question you asked.
But after this development, when Israeli Prime Minister is also nominating, is Pakistan the same thought or they have revised their perception about it? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I have earlier mentioned it that the Pakistan's nomination was in the backdrop of Pakistan-India context, not the Israel, because on Israel, Pakistan has a very clear position condemning Israel on every possible forum, and not only the public, but on the government. Both Pakistani public and government were on the same page condemning and desiring that Israel must be punished because, as I have earlier said, because Pakistan has also its own strategic concerns, which ultimately necessitated that Israel must be given a very strong punishment in Iran. And that's why Pakistani people also were celebrating the victory of Iran. It was taken that it was basically the Pakistan's another victory. Now, first in May, it was vis-a-vis India, and second in June, it was Israel, which was openly threatening Pakistan. So Israel's defeat is very much of Pakistan's victory as well.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Amjad. We're so happy that also our Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdul Handan Chowdhury, has joined with us. So, Professor Handan Chowdhury, the Vice Chancellor of North South University, he will give his comments and also give a vote of thanks, and we'll listen from him because he's busy with another meeting. And then we'll come to Professor Lama and at last with Professor Jainab to listen their last comment. So, Professor Abdul Hamdan Chowdhury, our Vice Chancellor of North South University, sir, over to you. Want you to move for
Professor Tawfiq, am I audible? Professor Tawfiq. Professor Tawfiq, am I audible?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the, opportunity to talk in front of these team panelists in our today's webinar on Iran-Israel war, implications for South Asia and its neighborhood. I think I must thank, first of all the esteemed panelists along with North-South University. One, I see that, well, Dr. Zainab from University of Tehran and also from Tsinghua University, China, Professor Kian Feng, and, Mahendra Lama from Jawaharlal Nehru University, India, and University of Punjab from Pakistan, Professor Amjad Abbas Khan. All of you, thank you very much for a very pertinent discussions that you all have, gathered together with the panelists from North-South University, Professor Muhammad Nurujjaman and Dr. Tawfiq, and also my colleagues, Professor Mahbub and others. In the subject matter, I'm not an expert, but, I have my own feelings about Iran, Israel, Palestine issues. We have been always, raising our voice in regards to the Palestine issues. I think, in the global context, I understand that, well, why the West and also the advanced countries do not want that Iran can proceed in regards to be a nuclear power. We understand it very well that, well, they do not want to see that, well, from the Muslim country, any more, nuclear power are going to be evolved, especially in the Middle East, where Israel has great interest to, accomplish their mission in regards to wiping out our, beloved Palestine, especially this war, particularly in the Iran-Israel war that had happened few days before. For few days, we have seen the devastated effect of that in both sides. But then again, we also see that, well, how Iran was actually celebrating, the Muslim world was also celebrating in terms of actually confronting Israel, although US was involved, eventually for a part of the, episode. When it comes to the implication for South Asia, we have seen even there are many font of devastated, implication that had happened. One recent experience I would like to share with this esteemed, panelist, even in a country like Bangladesh, which has been always supporting the Palestinian cause, and we have been always raising voice for the, operation that has been done systematically by Israel to the Palestinian brothers and sisters and Muslim, people, our brotherhoods, our, brothers and sisters in, Palestine, especially. Now that all of a sudden in South Asia, we see that, well, I don't know how it happens, even from West or what, pressure that we have got that this time, even being an esteemed institution like North South, and also many Bangladeshi institutions, those who were actually welcoming all the time Palestinian students to be over here in Bangladesh. After this war, the Iran and Israel war, all of a sudden, even we see that, Palestinian students are blocked by even the government, you know, all of a sudden, which pressure I do not know. So I'm very concerned about one thing that, well, why even country like Bangladesh and also Muslim countries in, across the world are blocking the Palestinian students not being able to go there. And this has been a very big issue, and I raised that voice to the government. I am hoping that, well, I tried to cross-check with the Foreign Ministry and Home Ministry yesterday, and we are in dialogue that how we can actually bring those, Palestinian student body in our country. So you see that this was not there even before. It had happened actually after this, Iran and Israel war. All of a sudden, even the scenario changed in many Muslim countries, even our, in Middle East, and also, I'm not talking about the business implications, the other, diplomatic and other things. This is just one issue in South Asia that we have got a very serious implications that we are actually trying to resolve these things that, well, it should not happen, and it is not acceptable by people like us, those who are actually always supporting the, Palestinian cause. And in regards to the Iran-Israel part, I know that, well, the global leaders from the US, many of you know the role, and I have seen also the Pakistan's role, how in terms of actually negotiating that time. Time Pakistan Chief of Army Staff was in the US even to negotiate that part. That was great. That, well, even Pakistan being a South Asian country, they were in the leading part of negotiating of this sort of confrontation between Israel and Iran. This is something important in terms of the strategic matter that, South Asian countries and Muslim countries as a whole, I would say that, well, need to have that sort of leaderships in terms of the global confrontation that is happening, Muslim versus the other, West generation generated thing. I must say that, well, we are with Iran in regards to this confrontation that had happened with Israel, and we gave all sort of support and mental support and other, support. And we are with also other Muslim countries, the UAE, we have been always raising this voice. In terms of the Muslim countries to get the, nuclear power-wise strength, I would say that, well, this is going to be a consistent drive by the Muslim countries, particularly Iran. I believe that, well, they are going to pursue their nuclear, target, whatever they want. This is a big game which we cannot actually make any comment. But at some point, I would say that, well, these are all going to be, a very supportive things for the Muslim world to neutralize the problems and issues that encounter, that actually comes into our, front only for the Israelis, I would say that, well, aggressive, attitude and also aggressive foreign policy and strategy the way Israel is doing. So because I'm not a subject expert, being a simple civic citizen and a Muslim country's, Muslim, academician, I would say that, well, I can see that, well, after this Iran-Israel war, many things in regards to the business and our trade and other things that was actually heavily impacted in this part of the world because of the transportation and transshipment by this, oceanic, fund. And, hopefully, it's going to be resolved soon. And we do not want to see that, well, this sort of adverse situation that our Muslim brothers and sisters are going to face or confront, in the upcoming future. We would like to see that, well, this whole world is going to look towards the peaceful, solution for everything, and we are going to live in a world with harmony, and that's what is actually our objective. And I'm sure that academic, individuals like Professor Mohendro Lama and Kiang Feng from Tsinghua, and also other institutions like from Tehran, Dr. Zainab and Professor Amjad, they are going to give more valued input in the discussion. And I'm sure the audience, those who are actually attending in this session, they are going to be able to learn many things or benefit many things from this discussion session. But from my office, from the Vice Chancellor Office of North South, I would obviously give my heartiest greetings and thank you to all these team panelists for adding value, and my colleagues, those who have been always bringing the very, very recent issues in the dialogue fashion at North South University. I must always thank SIPG. They always bring all sort of confronting issues, policy-driven issues in the dialogue format, and they bring also people on the table to discuss those things, and that gives a huge learning for our student body, the audience, and also I myself is also enriching. I'm gaining a lot of knowledge from all of you. So with all this, thank you very much for having me, and good luck to your webinar. And also, I would say that, well, be together to even raise voice for this sort of war and any confrontation that is happening in any part of the world. We do not want that things. We want to see a peaceful planet Earth for everybody in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And Vice Chancellor of North South University for giving his vote of thanks and his thoughts about the issue. We go back to the program again. Now we're going to Professor Lama from JNU. Sir, we have a few questions towards you, but because of shortage of time, I'm just concentrating on one that the several questions have the same kind of the tone. The tone is that why India is so close with Israel, because this is something that because of probably Bangladesh, Pakistan, the Muslim majority countries, the people always have that question in their mind. And especially one person asked this question that during Congress period, the Indian foreign policy about Palestine was very pro-Palestine kind of a thing, and very strongly condemned any atrocities by Israel towards Palestinians. But when BJP came to power, gradually it shifted its position, and now it is totally opposite. So do you think that if Congress comes to power in future again, is there any possibility of changes of India's foreign policy towards Israel and Palestine? So that's the kind of a thing. And so do you understand the question, sir? I know this is a bit complicated.
I can understand. See, it is the prerogative of the government in power to orient, reorient, disorient. Right? It's foreign policy issues. We have seen that in Congress period also. For example, when I was a student in the university system, whenever we used to think about Indian Ocean, the biggest disrupting factor in the Indian Ocean used to be the US, right? And we knew about it because our textbooks said that, our articles, our teachers mentioned about it, and and everybody condemned the US, right? We knew that in Afghanistan, when the Soviet occupation happened, the entire the country which was responsible for bringing so much of instability in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and in neighboring countries in South Asia was US, right? So everybody knew. But look how things have changed as far as US is concerned. We have a Quad, you have an Indo-Pacific, where US continues to be again the central factor from the other side of the drama, right? So therefore, my submission today is, all said and done, US does not tolerate, right, any country, any geography, any regional bloc to come up, right? Look at the BRICS and look at the attitude of US, right? It's good that at least President Trump speaks very frankly about BRICS. Other president did not speak, right? He very, very frankly speaks. That must go to his credit, because he knows that today also in China's import of oil, 20% comes from Russia, 11% comes from Iran. For India, 30% of its oil actually comes from Russia. So he thinks that if these 4, 5, 8 countries come together, where Iran is going to be a significant player, what would happen? Because it is a very firm believer in the practice of big country has big sovereignty, right? A small country has a small sovereignty, and that it propagates and practices everywhere. Whereas sovereignty is sovereignty. The content, the spirit, the nature of sovereignty, whether big or small, is the same, right? So it thinks that sovereignty, if US has a big sovereignty, country like others will have a smaller sovereignty. One, this is very, very critical. It doesn't want any two countries which would make a difference in the global world to come together, India and China, right? So it practices, it goes to Nepal and say, hey, you must join Indo-Pacific. What has got Nepal to do with Indo-Pacific, right? Whereas its sole intention in going to Nepal and asking them to join Indo-Pacific is to tell them that I would like to stop the rise of China right at its doorstep. That's what it is doing. It is going to neighboring countries, including to man. On the other hand, we will also find the what you call the most prolific protector of human rights, right? Everybody, everywhere it raises issues of human rights. Look at Gaza. Thousands of young babies and children were killed. It just closed its eyes. Even then, we celebrate US. The US is today the biggest destabilizer, biggest disruptor. Wherever it finds that there is something, right, which is going to challenge its so-called big sovereignty, it comes down on that heavily in the name of tariff. Look at Harvard University today. Look at its own Harvard University today, what it does. So this is something all countries must come together. That is why for a country, for a region like South Asia, it is very, very critical for us to come together and revive an and regional organization like SAARC. Because whatever problems between India and Pakistan had in the past, it was the SAARC forum which brought the two leaders together, negotiating table, and again go back to a kind of a peaceful development process. Therefore, I would say that India also has to change its ways to a certain extent, because though it has its own political, ideological, and of course national security considerations, but India should not really toe the US line, because the moment it toes the US line, it will generate so many enemies, right? Starting from Russia to China to all the Gulf countries to South Asian countries to countries in the Southeast Asian to South Asia, Southeast Asia. Therefore, I would say that India has been able to negotiate its path very clearly in the past, like in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, has been a global player as far as South Asia, as far as global South is concerned, has been a global player as far as North-South negotiations and North-South dialogues are concerned. And I think India should treat that part. If it is traditional, could be traditional. If it is a modern path, it could be modern. And I think that is the best way to really bring forth some kind of stability, both at the regional and the global level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lama, for a very forward-looking kind of a statement and also the policy. And we hope that in South Asia, we will have more peace and stability and harmony. So with that, we go out to our final panelist, Professor Dr. Zainab Ghashemi. So, Professor Ghashemi, there are so many questions, but we don't have time. We are already running short. Within 5 minutes, you will have to answer. So I just address a few of the questions, and then you can choose that which one you want to pick. The first question is actually about the IAEA role and also the Iran's future plan for nuclear one. So how does Iran want to use its nuclear power for defensive use or for both tactical and defensive use? So that kind of a thing. And the second question is related with Shia Sunni one, and this question came and it said that this is probably the first time the Sunni world, especially the people of the Sunni world, overwhelmingly supported Iran. And this Shia Sunni divide didn't work, even though in some part of the world the external forces wanted to play it with, but it didn't work. So, but still, Iran see this kind of a confrontation with Israel as a nationalistic war kind of a thing, that the Persian nationalism and the pride of the Persian nationalistic history, Iran is bringing back 3,000 backs kind of portrays and kind of things what their kings and emperors did. So how Iran will foresee in future the support of the Sunni world continue like this, where there is a criticism that ultimately Iran is more proud about a kind of a Persian Shia nation than a broader part of the broader Muslim world. So this is some questions that it came, and also about the future of the nuclear power plan for Iran. And also if you have any last comments for that. I'm sorry, 5 minutes, Professor. Over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, so thank you for the questions. With respect to Iran's nuclear program, the Iranian nuclear program was developed. First of all, it's right of all countries to have a peaceful nuclear program, and Iran was within that framework of NPT under the most intrusive inspections of the IAEA. So Iranians didn't violate any terms of peaceful nuclear agreement. Iran used this nuclear program for medical isotopes and for diagnosis of cancers, and also producing medicine for cancer patients. You know that Iran is under sanctions and Iranians cannot get their medicine easily. So Iranians have to develop it inside the country. And I don't know if you are familiar, but some of the friends who are here are from neighboring countries. Many people from neighboring countries are coming to Iran because of its very advanced medical program. So Iran has been, because of the sanctions, Iran needed to use this for peaceful purposes. After a while, when Iranians had this JCPOA in 2015, and then the United States pulled out of the JCPOA unilaterally, Iranians used uranium enrichment as a leverage to bring them to the negotiating table. So that is the time that Iran started to increase its level of enrichment in order to bring the Americans to the negotiating table. But so far, there was no evidence that Iranians' nuclear program was deviating from a peaceful nuclear program. Then you can also compare it with Israel, which has no accountability. With respect to this to Sunni Shia divide, I think, well, you know that the Palestinians are not Shias, there are Sunnis. Iranians are the Shia country, the only Shia country who is paying a heavy price for that. Here, when we were listening to other guests, always keeping the middle ground between, okay, Iran is good, but Israel is also, we need to keep like sort of relations with the Israel as well. You know, Iranians didn't keep that middle ground. Iranians paid a heavy price under huge sanctions for the Sunni Palestinians. The Sunni countries in the region kept their relations with the Israelis. They kept their economic relations with the Israelis, and they are keeping that. So in that sense, I think the least you can do is to boycott Israel. This is what people did with apartheid South Africa. They eventually, I mean, sanctioned the country economically. Not, you don't have to take what Iranians did. You don't have to pay that price, that you have like attacks on your soil, but you can boycott this country and put pressure economically on the Israelis. Israel is one small province. If you actually look at the size of Israel and the number of their population, it's a small province of Iran. It's a very small country, and you can easily, I mean, this is the only thing you can do is to boycott the country economically. So that's my response, and sorry if I took time.
Thank you very much, Professor Zainab. Thank you very much, especially for this, the last comment that you made, and that makes sense that Iran pays the most heavy prices to standing beside the Palestinians, not for last 10 years or 15 years, for the last decades. And so that's the proof that Iran doesn't see in many ways these issues of Muslim causes from Shia Sunni lens. So thank you very much. And as we draw this timely and conclude this timely and thought-provoking discussion to a close, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all our distinguished speakers and participants. Today's webinar has shed valuable light on the complex and evolving dynamics of the Iran-Israel conflict and how its ripple effects are being felt not only in the Middle East, but across the South Asia and its broader neighborhood. So we discuss here from energy security and foreign policy recalibrations to the impact on migration, regional stability, and global alignments. The insights shared today have been both enriching and sobering. It is clear that the consequences of these conflicts extend well beyond the immediate battlefield and will continue to shape the strategic thinking in the months and years ahead. On behalf of South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance of North-South University, I thank all of you for your active engagement and thoughtful contributions. We hope this conversation will encourage continued research, dialogue, and policy reflection on regional security, diplomacy, and cooperation. We will prepare a small working paper or policy brief on the basis of the discussion that we had. So thank you again for being with us, and we look forward to welcoming you to our future events. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Fain, Professor Amjad.
Thank you, Professor Lama, Professor Amjad.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all of you for holding this wonderful event.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you, Professor Taufik, Professor Nurujaman.
Thank you.